Okay, so I've been interviewing some of you guys about family, and I haven't gotten to everybody. I'm still going to be doing this because in the whole month of December, our midweek services are going to be around family and what heaven and God's true intent on family is. So tonight, in a few minutes, we're going to have a panel. But what I wanted to let you guys know, because you guys put your heart and soul and vulnerability into it when I interviewed you on your thoughts, your feelings, your childhood recollections on family, and I thought you might want to know kind of what came out of that. So it's really interesting. Everybody that I've interviewed so far had a really beautiful thoughts and a definition of family, things like love and togetherness and being there for each other. And also, what I noticed is sometimes it can feel really difficult and awkward to know how to share maybe the painful things from your childhood with your parents and your family. Some things you've forgiven and given to the, under the blood of Jesus, and some things maybe are still hurtful. But that can always kind of feel like, wow, I don't want to dishonor my family. I don't want people to feel badly about my family. So how do I share something difficult in my childhood while still being honoring and presenting my family in a good light, because we really do love our families. Yeah. So I thought tonight would be a really exciting time just to talk about that one piece of we love family and we love this idea of being together and have a family supporting us. But actually, through what I learned in my interview process is a lot of you didn't actually feel like you had a strong family support growing up and your childhood, and you learn more about that as you developed into your church family and developed a relationship with the Lord and church family. So that was a really cool piece to discover from us, like where we're coming from. So this month, talking about family, is really interactive. It's really like Word Life Center. Where are we at? Where are we coming from? What is our need in family? Not just like a teaching 1, 2, 3 on family, but a really like, where are we at? Where are we coming from in family? And how can we all get to that true intention that God has for us to really live as family? So, because I know that it's a lot when we're children and things happen that do hurt us, and it's funny because family is like the place where we want to be safe and loved, but it's actually family is where we get sometimes actually endure our deepest wounds is in family. So how do we heal from some of those wounds? And I also noticed that a lot of us came from upbringings that said, you know what, if you're hurt, suck it up, don't cry, just move on, So it's kind of like a lot of you didn't even have permission to say, wow, that hurt me, that hurt my feelings, without feeling like you were just a sissy or really weak or that was actually wrong. So, but what we've learned is actually we are body, soul, and spirit, and it's actually really important that we learn how to meet our needs in a healthy way. God created us with needs. And it's really important that we learn how to meet those needs in a healthy way. So tonight, you guys all love vulnerability? Yeah. You love vulnerability? Tonight we're going to get really vulnerable. And we're going to share. I'm hoping that this will really help you in seeing that how parents and children can dialogue and heal when hurts have happened. Because us as parents, like, I'm going to do such a good job. I want to be the best mom ever. I can do it. And then we find out, oh, wow, I hurt my child. Or children, as a child, you might feel like, wow, mom and dad, this really hurt me. And then we begin to believe lies about ourselves. So we're not here to blame parents. We're not here to say, wow, you had a good family, you had a bad family. But it's all about what happened inside of me and my inner world when this happened. What did I perceive happened? And how can I let the Lord come in and fix that and heal that so I can go on believing the truth? So tonight, our panel, you guys can come on up, is our own Pastor Marcus, his 2 kids, Jessica and Michael, and my own daughter, Carrie. And we are going to tonight share with you some things that have happened in our family that have been painful and difficult. And we're going to talk about how we worked through it. So you can actually watch us and see this is how you can talk about your feelings and about things that have happened and come to a conclusion of, but this is the truth that God says about you. So that's what we're going to be, in a way, just showcasing for you tonight and displaying for you tonight. So first of all, thank you, everybody, for being here, for being vulnerable, because we're going to share our feelings and things that have happened in our families that have been difficult. So is there anybody of you kids? We'll start with you guys. Anybody feeling brave? Yeah. Michael, you're feeling brave? Yes. Okay. So we'll start with Michael.
Yay.
So Michael.
Hi.
You have like the best family ever. And can I just say it? Everybody's like, oh, we get to hear what happens in the pastor's house. So, Michael, would you be so vulnerable and so kind and share us a scenario in your life that happened, an interaction with your dad that caused hurt in your heart?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two that come to mind, and I'm not sure which one we'll choose to dive into, but there's two that for me were a sticking point in growing up with my dad. And one of them was that I felt that my dad used to love Jessica more than me. So that was a hurdle that when I was younger really was in there, and that took a while to deprogram that because I realized there was a partnership that I had chosen to believe, right, and that was something that was there. And then another one was realizing that that my dad and I have different ways of communicating and different styles in our way that we communicate with each other, and that was a big learning experience because I would take it personal when my dad would be more direct or be more black and white about things, and I was like, but I need to process that, or I have questions, and his intentionality and his intenseness for the moment of we're gonna achieve this, we're gonna be successful. I'm like, yes, we are. Tell me how to do it. He's like, you're just gonna do it. I'm like, but I'm not ready to do it yet. You have to tell me how. And so in that was a really interesting parts of my life where it wasn't just one particular moment per se that that set it off, right? But it was over time where it's realizing wait, when you get intense, I think you're upset at me. When you really are trying hard to work at getting something done, that I take that as you're upset at me. I start to feel like I'm a barrier to the process.
Is there a scenario you could think of?
Yeah, so there's a running, so the reason this is a funny one to bring up, so there's a running joke in the family with an example we have. I think you probably already know which one it is. There's an example where we were working, if you know anything about us as a family, we are people that know how to work really hard with their hands. So we are people we would never hire somebody unless we're on our deathbed to do anything in our house for us, because we'll do it ourselves. So anyway, we were working outside and doing some work, and my dad was very emphatic on working on something, and all of a sudden the situation, I forget exactly what it was, got kind of emergency-wise because something was about to, one of the piping things was about to blow off, or something was about to some impending doom was about to happen. And we're like, okay, so it got really intense, really went from a nice little backyard project to, oh shoot, something's about to happen. And so in the desperation of the moment, my dad's the doctor, he's calling to the nurses give me the tools. And we're Jessica and I are like, what tools do you need? He's like, just get me the white pliers. And we're like, okay. So we go running inside the house and we get lost. We're going through the tool bench. We're like, we never knew we owned white pliers. And we're in our head, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he's gonna freak out so bad. He's gonna think, what's taking me so long? And I'm trying so hard to find these pliers. And so he comes chasing in after us, and he opens the garage door. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, what are you guys doing? We're like, we can't find the white pliers. And he's like, yes, they're right here. So he opens the drawer, and would you know it, there's these silver chrome pliers, and he's like, these are the white pliers. I'm like, that's chrome. And he's like, I don't care what it is, that's white to me. And he storms outside and goes to fix the problem. And so we always have this joke, and it's always been this running diffuser. So whenever we've had these moments where it starts to get really heated and tense, one of us will just say white pliers, and it's kind of the little diffuser of okay, wait a second, we maybe just need to take a moment to try again. So
That is so good, Michael. So that's great. What we're going after now is the piece of, in your mind, in your heart, what's the lie that you began to believe in that moment?
Yeah, so in full transparency, it's taken a long time for a lot of this to really come and get healed up because that's something that I really stuck with. And the lie I was starting to believe was that like I'm a hindrance to my dad, or that like that he feels like almost like I have to be bossed by him in that sense, like that I can't be me around him. And so what started happening is I felt, okay, my dad doesn't value me. He doesn't value my input into things. And so then my defense mechanism started to become, when we work together, I start having to defend my opinion. So then we're working together. It's not so much, like he starts just to give me like instructions because we just need to get something done. And I started thinking like, oh, but like, what if we should try it like this? Or like, did you consider we should do this? And he's like, well, I'm not going to do it like that. I'm going to do it like this. And I'm like, but this is like the better way to do it. Or like, you know, and then I start to argue myself, or if I don't feel like he's listening, then I start to tell him like, yeah, like, well, no, you're wrong. And like, this is how it needs to be. Or like, you're not listening to me. So I start to become trying to defend my opinion because I'm trying to say I'm valuable. I have something to bring to the table. You know, and that was
started believing that what you're
correct.
bringing to the table isn't worth anything.
Correct. Yeah.
When you told your dad about this,
Mm-hmm.
did you have a moment when you said, I need to tell my dad how this is making me feel?
That was also the healing process. That was also the healing process.
So, but let's go to that moment. Can you
Yeah.
remember that moment?
Yeah. So like,
When you shared with your dad?
Definitely.
What did that feel like? Was that scary? Did it feel?
yeah. So I think this is something that even as I was preparing to talk tonight, something that I realized was that in this process of having communication with a family member, and especially with somebody that's like your parent, in my case, my papa, right? Like having a conversation like that with my papa is something where like, I'm going to be honest, I had to figure that out because I didn't have a grid for that. Like all I knew was my heart's hurting. And the only thing that would give me the courage to speak to him was that I know that my dad loves me so much that he is a person who likes to heal, and that I know that because he's a person who likes to heal, I need to show him the part that's broken so he can at least try to heal. So it was kind of twisted because in the same moment I feel like I have to punish my dad because he hurt me. I have to kind of show him that, you know, you're stepping on my toe and it hurts. But I also knew like, okay, if I tell him it hurts, maybe there's a chance he'll change, you know, because I'm like, I'd feel so bad about this the way I am. I don't like being like this in my life. And so for the first couple of times I had this conversation with him, it was more out of like I said earlier, I was more in a defensive posture. So when we were working, I'm like, okay, I'm defensive. I had to put my guard up, right? And so my first couple of times of having conversations with him were more of an outburst of like, it hurts me when you do this. You don't think this, or like, you know, you're just being like this, or I just choose to be silent. And so a couple of times with that, like my dad saw that, and so he would start to pursue that in me. But because I was being so defensive about it, I didn't have a door for it. And so that was how the conversation started for many years. Is that's my only outlet I had. And then the time switched when I started to realize that, no, actually I do have value. And so once I started realizing, okay, look, I do actually have value. I do have identity. Then I can actually, there's a day where I remember talking to him and I said, okay, like, all right, I need to talk about this, not in the heat of the moment, but when I'm at rest and at peace, and say, hey, like, I just need to talk to you about this. And then realizing that I have to actually start the statement by saying, this is like, when you do this, this is how it makes me feel. And taking ownership for like, hey, like when you do it like this just hurts. Like this really hurts. Like this, like I don't know how to handle this. And actually just being transparent to say I don't know, because I really didn't know. And so in that process, my papa was so kind because he started to teach me the tools of communication in interpersonal relationships. He started to teach me like, no, it's okay that you're bringing your pain to me. It's okay you're bringing your hurt to me. But now I'm going to start giving you language so you can actually start to talk about it. And that's those conversations that end up leading to multiple conversations that actually saw that healing process heal, because something like that can't just get really fixed in a single conversation unless really God's power is really in it.
What's an example of a new language that you learned? And then we're going to go to...
Yeah, so the first one I said is the I statement, right? So when you do this, it makes me feel. So that's
you're not blaming.
Exactly. So it's that's a good way to put it. It's not blaming, because first, like, and that's I think what a lot of us can identify with is that when we have somebody in our family that's hurt us, we honestly are at the core of it, we know that they actually really do care about us, but we feel like the only way that we can get get them to change is to hurt them so that they know, oh wait, when I step on Michael's toe, I get punched. But my dad doesn't take very well to getting punched because that's not something. It's like you can't punch that. so I learned that really quickly. Trying to punch the guy to try and show him that it's hurting doesn't really communicate that it's hurting. It just actually elevates the situation worse. And so that being said, I had to start coming in humbly and actually recognizing, okay, like he actually does want to work with me, but the way that this is actually going to change is when I actually need to let him see what's happening inside me.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Let's go to Dad. So
Yay.
let's talk about how that felt to you as a parent when Michael came to you with that communication of hurt.
Yeah, I think, well, I was expecting that. Part of, as a parent, is like, I always want to have connection and communication with my kids. And I know when it's broken, and I know when there's walls there. And I constantly pursue that. And they know that I do. Just because I know when it's off, and we need to work at that. And like you said, a lot of times they're not ready to, but I'll just revisit and revisit because that's my job as a dad. No matter how old they are, my job as a dad is always to pursue. And so I'm not afraid of what they're going to say because I know I've been a kid and I know what my problems were with my parent, with my dad and mom. So I know that that's perception. So a lot of times some of the things that they tell you are not the funnest things for you to hear. But nothing is going to surprise you because you know deep in your heart, you know already your mess up. So that's not going to be the one that goes, oh, I have no clue. Most of them, I don't know. I can't ever remember ever them being surprised in that sense. But I know it's not fun because as a parent, you always want to portray an ability to have connection. And the most hurtful thing is for me as a dad to break connection with my kids. And so that's what I consistently pursue. And even they don't have verbiage for it, even though they, like Michael said in the beginning, he would come punching, and I go, that's not the way you do it. So we have a way how to do it, not that way. And that becomes heated at moments, and that becomes strong, but I'm not going to allow that because that doesn't get anywhere. But over time, and then I would always wait until the moment de-escalates. And then I'd go and say, okay, now this is something that you may want to work on. I see what you're doing here. I hear what you're saying here, but how about this?
What do you do in that moment as parents? It can feel actually really painful that we've hurt our kids and they've done something totally non-intentionally to break, like you said, break connection. Mm-hmm. There's something that wants to rise up in me. It's called defensiveness. It wants to. Do you ever feel like when you feel that coming and you feel like it'd be nice to be able to say, I didn't do anything wrong? What do you do in that moment?
For me, because I'm a different thinker, I don't think in those processes. I think a little bit different. For me, everything walks with respect. It's not about right and wrong. It's about respect in my life. So everything goes through respect. So you can say anything to me as long as you have respect. If you don't say it with respect, that's when I counter. And that's, and I said this to my kids many times, you can tell me anything, but you better have respect. If you don't have respect, I'm not going to, there's no door, there's no window, there's nothing. It's going to, no. And so for me, that's always the part that I find when it's done with respect, there's always an open way because that is the only door. And we have a different way. We have a verbiage we call honor. If you honor me, I will do that. If you don't honor me and you come with an attitude, that to me is, I will shut that conversation because I'm not going to go there, but I will go later when things are down, I will go and address it. Yeah. So I will always pause at the moment and then I go. The parts that, then when you as a parent, you kind of go and watch a video of yourself, you kind of go, well, that was really dumb, right? And we all have these videos, like the white pliers. I mean, it's funny, but you don't even know how you even get to those moments because you kind of go, what on earth was I thinking, And then you go to your kids and you go, that was really stupid. Now and we laugh about it, It's not like I don't live with guilt and shame. We have plenty of these stories where it's ridiculous, right? But that's part of being a parent, that you mess up royally and you just go and you say, you know what, that wasn't right.
Clean up your mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so as we keep walking along here, I want to ask you one more question, Michael. So after you, because we want to get to the point of really understanding how does processing through this pain with my mom or my dad help me to have breakthrough from that lie? Because that's really the bondage, is the lie.
I think the biggest part that I just want to say to that is kids, like he says, a lot of them works because you're the authority in your life. So a lot of them works from a defense mechanism, or it does work sometimes from a rebellious standpoint. And I think as parents, we have the job to be like Jesus, that he so loved the world, right? Our love for them will have to transcend no matter what they do. And so that means in my life, I have a job as a parent to always pursue my kids. And that's what I do. And I feel like, to me, it's I want to have connection. If I don't have connection, I will do whatever it takes to make that connection, right? And in my kids' cases was, I know they wanted connection. I know there was just our times when we didn't connect or when we broke connection. So for me, it's a dad wants to, but I also teach them over time that they have to want the same thing, right? It's a two-way street. I never give up my position as a dad, but I also share them that they need to take ownership of that.
Yeah. So just really quickly, Michael, because we want to keep moving also, did something shift inside of you in your inner world after that conversation with your dad?
So I think what's really important to mention is that I like to say that there was something that switched right away, but it, like I said, it took a lot of work. And so the part, and I think this is really important to recognize, is that my papa is exactly saying this is the right thing, is that he pursued me, right? And that was the part that really broke the walls down first, is that he pursued me. Because when I'm hurt, I feel, especially in that case, because I feel like, because my dad is my parent, I don't feel comfortable going to him and talking to him that way naturally, right? Unless I have a healthy identity. So pursuing me is the part that creates that link that says he does love me enough, so that's why I'm going to try it, right? The part that eventually broke for me, because I would take what he's saying is like, I would feel shut down when, because I would punch back, right? And so when he would rightly so say, okay, we will talk, but not like that. I would be like, but at least I'm talking, and now you're shutting me down again. So then I'd get hurt again, because, okay, well, now you're shutting me down. You wouldn't even want to have to hear what I have to say. And so that was a part, again, so that took years to work through that and be like, okay, no, I need to actually learn how to do this. So that's the part that when I realized that I can actually, like he said, I had to run against the fence enough to realize that when I actually come in humbly, and that there's actually a permission to discuss anything. And so, but that just really takes time. And I think the biggest thing that I think we can take away from just even the story as far as a parent-child relationship is that it does not just happen overnight. And that we have to be okay with that, because it's going to take time to build that trust, especially when it comes to relationship building. Trust is everything. And trust most of the time is proven over time. And I think what's really important is what I've done is that I've used these tools to come back to and say, okay, if this situation is feeling rocky, if this is not feeling okay, the reason it's not feeling okay is because maybe I'm not in a position to actually talk about this from a defensive perspective, but actually I'm talking, I'm not talking about this humbly, but I'm actually talking defensively. Yeah. And that really, learning those keys, and then as a parent, he can say, okay, I will still love you. And as a kid, like for me, going forward into my life, I'm saying, okay, you know what? When I talk to my kids, I have the opportunity to say, I still love you, which he said often. I still love you, and I want to talk about this, but right now, this is not the way we're going to talk about it. And it helps to diffuse those lies that the enemy likes to play, and be like, no, what your heart is important, but we're going to find healthy ways to do this.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Let's move.
And I just want to add one thing. One of the things that I always did as a dad is whenever we had those, moments, even though they were not good, I would always at the end, I would be the one pursue, and I would set it wherever it was, I would set the basics. I know we're working on this. I love you, and that kind of stuff. That always happened. It never was silent treatment. I don't talk to you, and in 3 weeks we'll talk again. It never was like that.
Yeah. Okay, let's give Jessica the mic. Jessica, what's a story you have?
I have two, but they kind of actually intermingle a little bit. So the first one was actually all of us were playing at my house, and we had dance music on. I think we had salsa music on, actually. And so we were dancing in the living room, and my dad was teaching me and Carrie how to dance salsa. And Carrie was a much better dancer than I was. And so we were dancing in there, and then I asked my dad, I said, how am I? And he goes, you look like a stork. And so he goes, you're so stiff, you're looking like a stork. And he goes, just loosen up like Carrie did. And so, but And my dad says those types of things, but I know he does that out of love. It's saying like, hey, come on, like loosen up, like saying funny things. But inside it really hurt because I thought, I am not a good dancer. See, Carrie's natural at it. I can't do this. This is something I like to do, but obviously I'm not good at it. So I'm not going to do it anymore. So that was a big hurt that I had. And it took a while. And I remember not too well, but I remember talking to my dad about it, and he goes, I just wanted you to loosen up. And I knew that, but I didn't know that. And it took a while because even though I had forgiven my dad about it, there was that lie in there of, you're not good at this. You can't do it. And so it took a long time, and I shared it on my creativity night. It took until the Lord showed me when I was at the Worship U conference that he showed me that picture, and he says, this is you. You can dance. So it actually took not only forgiveness with my dad, but it actually took the Lord to come in and say, redefining my identity again, saying, you are good at this. It is your time. Go dance. And it took sometimes a little bit for me at my house, put on some music, dance around, and said, you know what? I just don't care, and loosen up. And now I sometimes dance in front of you guys in the corner, but I'm just worshiping to the Lord. And I don't care as much as what I'm looking like. But obviously I want to get better at what I do. But it's no longer, I'm not good at this. It's, okay, I'm getting better at this. So that was the first one. Second one was, I remember I was in the car when my dad was taking me and Michael to school, and Joel Osteen would have his daily devotionals, and I would like to read them in the car. I was not a good reader when I was young, so I would say, hey, I want to read it. So I'm sitting in the car trying to read off his iPad, and I had these little stutter moments where I would be like, and you couldn't understand a word I was saying, honestly, when I was reading. It just was really bad. And so I didn't like reading in front of people, but I thought, I can read in the car, and I'll just get better at it. But I didn't really think I was getting better at it. I was just doing the same thing over and over again. And my dad told me one day, he goes, I'm not going to let you read this until you can read clearly. And again, he's saying, this is how I perceived it, as like really sharp. But my dad was telling me that to say, hey, you know what? You can get better at this. You are good at this. You just need to get better at it. And I know that was his heart, but again, I didn't know that. But this time I took it in a different way, where I actually started going home, and I would sit in my room. I would take, I think it was my Bible or a different book I would read, and I would sit there and I would read out loud until I started learning how to read without those little places in the middle. And sometimes still have those things, but it's not quite as evident anymore. So both those things, the enemy tried to take those lies and said, you're not good at this, but now look at me. I do dance, and now I speak up here. And so God used those things, and the enemy tried to use those things from my dad and said, you know what, you're not good at this. And the Lord said, no, you are. You just got to work at it. And so I know that was my dad's heart all the time, but knowing it and then having the Lord come in those moments and saying, you are good at this. You just have to do it. Because I remember my dad came in and goes, what are you doing in here? And I'm like, I'm reading out loud so I can get better. And he goes, okay. And he goes, yeah, you can do good. And I'm like, it's not that I don't want you to read. I just know that you can do better. And so you are doing better. Look how great you're doing. So, it was in those times of my dad pursuing me into my bedroom going, what are you doing here? So, because I don't usually just sit in my room alone. He goes, what are you doing here? So, but those were the two things that the Lord really highlighted to me for that.
Wow.
So
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Let's hear Carrie's story, and then we can do a little more. Carrie, you can take the mic. We are a blended family, so there's always wonderful, complicated emotions with that. So, Carrie, go ahead and tell us your story.
Yeah, so growing up in a blended family was definitely interesting. It was a lot of fun, but also pretty painful. The youngest of my older siblings was about like 15 years older than me.
When you were born, 12.
Yeah, 12.
Courtney was 12.
Okay. Yeah, there was a significant age difference, and even growing up when I was really little, like 3, I knew there was something different about me because I could tell the difference in the way the other people in the family were acting versus me, and they were adulting, doing adult things, and I'm here having meltdowns, like peeing my pants, like doing things that I'm just a little kid in a really big world. So it was a lot to process, and yeah, it just felt like a really big world. And my mom did a lot of teaching piano lessons, at one point 18 students. So that was a lot of her time. And because I felt so small, I wanted to feel like I could be an adult, because I felt that there was something different about me, that maybe that there was something wrong with me. So I had to do something to fit in with that world. So for me, what I felt I could do was be an adult. And the best way I knew how was to take care of myself. And to me, that meant like taking the list of needs and just making sure that they are not relevant, that like they don't exist. No one needs to do anything for me. So I would just I would entertain myself. I'd be teaching like the students. And I remember one time you told me, you're like, oh my goodness, Carrie, you're doing so good at entertaining yourself. And to me, that was like, okay, so I'm doing this well. So what I need to do to make mom happy is to shut down, make sure I meet my own needs, make sure that no one else has to do anything for me, and just basically be in my own world and take care of myself. And in that process, it felt really lonely. And it was difficult to get out of that. And I kind of felt like disconnected, because you were with like the piano students, and I'm like by myself, just like shut down.
Yeah, sweetie girl. And you know what? It was really, as a mom, to see you shut down but not know exactly how to get you out of that. And now that you have the language to say it, it's so powerful. It's so good. It's like in those moments I wish I had known exactly why you were feeling shut down. And like I said to you before, like what I said to Carrie when she told me this is like, I'm so sorry that I didn't see your heart, what was happening inside of you, that I didn't know and didn't take the time to really understand what was happening inside of your heart. Because that must have been really painful. Like you see family pictures, there's like all these adults and there's little baby Carrie. And I'm like, that must have felt really like overwhelming to be the little one in a bunch of like big people world.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, I kind of like, because we have a few minutes here to kind of start wrapping things up, I'm hearing a lot of another word that we use for these lies and this sense of I'm not enough is shame. So there's a lot of like shame that tries to come in and like grab us and literally paralyze us. Your story and your family story is going to be different than theirs, but that enemy and his shame, he tries to like grab each one of us. And it's so important that we understand that those needs that you had, the needs that you had, Jessica, to feel like supported, these were real needs. Your need to feel seen for the little one, not expected to be an adult, that was a real need. And Michael, for you to feel like you're important in a project and you're seen and heard, these are like real needs, not suggestions. Like these are needs. To have communication and understanding with our parents, with our siblings, is a real need. I know you mentioned a little bit about Jessica feeling like your dad loved her more. That's a really common sibling feeling, is feeling like they're better than me. They're worth it. I'm less than. And how shame just tries to come in and eat us alive. And it's just wonderful how each one of you have said, you know what, I'm not letting that happen. I'm not letting my life be eaten up by shame. I'm going to believe the truth. It's a fight. Like you could hear it in Michael and Jessica's and Carrie's like testimony. It was a fight. Was there a moment for you? I know, Jessica, you said like some moments you had with the Lord, encounters with the Lord that really gave you breakthrough. Yeah. Was there a moment for you that you felt like you had some breakthrough in this?
I think for me was I could feel the transformation in your walk with family culture. Like I remember like when I was little, I kind of felt a little unsafe because you were so busy. But then as you started learning these tools and you started pursuing me first, and you realized first that back then like teaching the piano lessons wasn't necessarily the best decision. And you came to me and told me that. And I was like, oh, but it was fun. I was fine. But you persisted and you kept coming to me until I realized that, oh my goodness, that's not how we do family. And I was able to kind of like realign, or at least begin the process of realigning that's not that's not how we do things, and go from there, basically.
Did it make you feel validated in your heart? Like that what you were feeling was important? That those struggles that you were having, a feeling like I actually do need something more than just to be by myself?
Yeah,
Or
and it
else?
made a lot of sense because I felt like I was in a lot of pain, but I had no idea why or what the pain was from. But then it all started to make sense of what the things I would like, all the hurts I was feeling inside, and seeing how it kind of like played out in my life.
Really great. Michael.
Can I add a couple things to that? I feel like I think you're identifying a really good piece of the puzzle is that shame is what's trying to speak. And I've talked often about how the enemy is a big conspiracy theorist, and that's really a crucial thing to understand in this conversation is that and this really ties together well because in my case, all of this has to do with perception. It has to do with what do I choose to believe, because the enemy can paint a picture, right? And the thing about a conspiracy theorist is that a conspiracy theorist can still believe wholeheartedly everything they have, and they will make evidence out of things that they see that will completely enforce their reality that they think is there. And that's exactly what the enemy does with us. And he takes the things that we feel hurt by, and he doesn't have to really convince us much because we become our own conspiracy theorists, and we'll take that thing that's hurting and we'll make our story with it. And that's the scenario with Jessica is like, thinking my dad loved her more. It comes out of the same place. The reason I was telling that story because Jessica's a little more wired like my dad in that way that she doesn't really need many details. She can just kind of go into it. And so I would see the way that they would interact, and it seemed like they would just kind of click and they would just get it. And so in that, I would feel intimidated by that because I felt like I was annoying my dad by doing these things. And I'm like, but actually, like, I'm really good at this. Like, don't you see the value of what I have? Like, don't you think that I'm actually better at this than Jessica? I mean, so like, so part of it's just like, I'm kind of like, why, there's, because again, it's perception. It's about, okay, shame is trying to speak the narrative, and the perception is that, they click together so well, and obviously I'm the annoying one. Obviously I'm the one who creates the hindrance. If he really desired me, then he would work really hard at fixing this with me. But he's really not working hard because it's so easy for him and Jessica to figure it out. And that's the narrative that runs and runs and runs. And I'd be lying if I said that doesn't happen every once in a while. And it doesn't happen necessarily with Jessica as much because God's removed that like frame of reference. But in the sense that, okay, wait, it really has to get down to my perception, because the funny thing about this growing process with my dad is that, like, my dad has a fantastic personality and has a lot of really great things that he brings to the table. But in order for those things to be as successful as he is in those areas, his personality has to be a certain way because that's how God made him. And there's a thing that I have to believe that actually I am created differently, and I'm allowed to be different. I'm allowed to think in different ways and process in different ways, but it doesn't make me a wrong person. It doesn't mean that I'm wrong, I'm bad. And realizing that actually my dad can't really change who he is. So there's parts about his nature and how he is that actually I have to choose to believe, no, Satan, I'm not going to let you write the narrative. And that's the hardest part of this whole process, is saying, okay, I'm going to choose to humble myself, God, in front of you, and realize that, God, I'm going to acknowledge that even though everything in my body tells me no, that actually this is a deception that's in front of me, that there's a conspiracy theory that I'm choosing to agree with. There's a narrative that the enemy is giving us and giving me that I'm choosing to reinforce by whatever I see.
Yeah. Now let me ask Jessica a question. Can you give the mic to Jessica for a minute? Jessica.
Yes.
Have you struggled with any lies of believing that you're loved in the family?
I always knew, like, for me being little, like the little one in the family, I always felt like I needed to do things more, like when we would be going into stores, I felt like I needed to be the first one in the store, so I would run faster and everyone's walking behind saying, why are you going so fast? But I felt like I had to differentiate myself. So I now even remember I would be sitting at the table and I would sit on my legs so I could be at the same height as everyone at the table because I was the smallest one at the table. So like little things like that where I felt like I'm the shortest one in the family, even though I'm not like too much shorter, but I'm the shortest one in the family. And so like I would try and find things, and like me and Michael would have competitions all the time. So that would be like my way of going, okay, I'm in this family. I can do this. And so like, and my dad being competitive, I'm like, I got that competitiveness. I will beat you kind of thing. So like those types of things, like sometimes I would have to try and prove to myself that, I belong in this family, or like little things like that. But I always knew I was loved, but for me, it was finding my place, I think, is more.
Okay. Yeah. Great. You know what? It's already time for us to wrap up, but thank you so much. Would you guys just please give a round of applause to them for being vulnerable and sharing, having the courage to share. So I'm just going to leave you guys with a blessing. So God, I just thank you that you came and your power overcomes all shame. And we belong. We are here with a purpose that we fit perfectly right where you put us, God. And so I just declare I just release just a sense of belonging, of purpose, of just knowing how we fit into our families. Excuse me, whether church families, biological families, God, that this spirit and that sense of belonging would just be solidified deep inside of our hearts tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.